Stephen, sending you a short Pilates warm-up exercise video that just really is going to emphasize neutral spine mechanics, something that you can work on for a couple days or over the weekend. I feel like we finally get to meet again next week or even the week following, so just a little something hopefully to have in the meantime. So go ahead onto your back, settling in. You want to feel the head resting. You want to feel the ribs resting. You want to feel the pelvis resting and the sacrum resting. We're going to start with the bent knee opening. So pelvis stays steady. You allow the right knee to open as far as you can without feeling the pelvis tip off or spill off to the side. Bring that leg back in. Inhale, allowing the alternate leg to open. Again, can you keep the pelvis steady? Can you keep the shoulders pretty quiet? Inhaling to open, exhaling back in. Inhaling to open, exhaling back in. After you've done, say, maybe about 10 to 12 alternating, you can do both legs, kind of like a bound angle or supine bound angle. You can, again, open, imagine or emphasize reaching to either side of the room versus how far you can get to the floor. Pelvis staying steady, but what you can play with is very much like a walking pattern. You can try to up the tempo to see if your trunk can stabilize. So I can go out, in, out, in. I can really try to work my tempo up to see if I can control and steady the pelvis while the legs move pretty freely in the hip joint. Next exercise, single leg lift. So right leg lifting to that 90-90. Trunk pretty much unchanged. Place the right foot down, left leg lifts. See if you can do a few just to note. Can I avoid a lot of adjustment or movement in the pelvis? Again, we don't want tipping side to side or too much forward and back. Can you breathe naturally? The way you up the ante a little bit is you could take the leg up, you can lift the other leg. See if you can maintain the same points of contact, back of the head, back of the ribs, pelvis. Can you feel the abdominals dropping down versus popping up? Tap the right toes towards the floor and back up. Left toes towards the floor and back up. Again, sets of usually about 8 repetitions. Of course, to 12 repetitions is going to be a little bit more of the strengthening. Where you could take this is same rules apply, but could you even lengthen a leg out, keep it at the same level as the alternate foot, bring that leg back in, and switch. So can you still work these same mechanics while maintaining the trunk? Again, you could work through about 8 to 10 or even 12 repetitions. And then from here, you can float a foot down, other foot down. You could do a little single leg circle. So extending one leg up towards the ceiling. The goal is that that knee stays pretty well over the hip joint, or that thigh stays over the hip joint, just a little bit beyond 90. So if I need a little knee bend, that's fine. I'm going to extend the other leg on the mat. If I can feel like I can maintain contact or attempt to maintain contact with that thigh on the floor. Arms may come out to a T position. I can begin to circle in my hip joint. The goal is, or breath pattern is, full breath in for one circle, full breath out for a circle. Again, working through 8 to 10 circles one direction, and then 8 to 10 circles the other direction. Noting, can I keep the head and the shoulders resting? Can I keep the trunk pretty free of adjustment while I move through this? Of course, you're going to want to do both legs, 8 to 10 times each direction. Let's finish up with one on your side. And we've been playing with this one a little bit as far as maintaining, again, the head, the ribs, the pelvis in kind of a straight line. You're going to lift the top leg to about hip level. The goal is that as you move here, the pelvis stays pretty steady. And you're going to move that thigh into hip flexion. I want to avoid rounding, so I want to keep my seat bone's reaching down. I'm going to take the thigh back, try to get that thigh as much as you can in line with the pelvis, but you're going to work this, of course, on both sides, but it's really good for range of motion of the hip, for stability of the hip. Maybe again about 12 times each leg. And I said last one, but I do feel like hands and knees would be a great position to get into. So hands and knees. What you could even tinker with, Stephen, is a couple things on hands and knees. Head, again, ribs, pelvis in one line. You could work a leg, kind of like a spinal balance. You can work a leg extending back. Don't worry so much about the lift, but just really try to extend and lengthen from the hip, all while maintaining that spine in a nice lengthened position. Again, about 10 to 12 times. What you could also do, Stephen, from this position is a really nice plank prep type movement. So the goal would be, Stephen, it's kind of like I'm vacuuming or I'm suctioning my thigh bones off the mat up into the hip joints, so my knees now hover just really about an inch off the mat. The lower, probably the harder it is. So for instance, if I start to come up here, I've probably gone or I'm maybe getting a little tired. So maybe try for about 3 to 5 breaths. Once that becomes easy, even 7 to 10 breaths. And I think that's got a few things for you to think about or work on until we see you next. Thank you, Stephen.